For a few years now, the media has been excitedly suggesting that we face a future in which increasingly intelligent machines will replace or fundamentally reshape many of the tasks currently performed by well-paid professionals. The list of potentially extinct jobs includes those performed by lawyers, accountants, surgeons, pilots, and rather ironically, the media. But how realistic are these suggestions really? Now, fundamental to the extinction argument is raw computing power. Moore's law means that the processing power of computers doubles roughly every 2 years or so. And this, people say, will inevitably result in some kind of superintelligence, the technological singularity. Now, quite how or when this will happen is usually unspecified, which is rather convenient for those seeking to evade reason, evidence, or accountability. A few people have put dates on this, but the date keeps seeming to move. The ultimate conclusion of this argument seems to be that our machines will somehow awaken one day and threaten the very existence of our species. But such arguments surely contain several errors that no such computer would ever make. First of all, just because something grows very fast for a very long time does not inevitably mean that it will continue to do so forever. As Woody Allen said, forever is a very long time, especially towards the end. Trends bend, and trends very often snap, and quite often reverse as well. At some point, Moore's law will hit the fundamental limits of physics and no longer hold true. Now, it's possible that some kind of quantum computing or DNA computing will take over, but I wouldn't bet your future career on it. Google, one of our sponsors, we could cite their self-driving car possibly as a way that technology is evolving, but I don't think this either proves the argument or sheds very much light on where technology may take us. And interestingly, Google's self-driving car, which isn't completely self-driving yet, does seem to run into a particular problem, which is us. The car is rules-based, and other drivers and pedestrians have a habit of actually not obeying the same rules, which is quite a difficult thing to program. Now, it's possible to imagine all kinds of scenarios where an Internet of Things, smart sensors, wearables, or implantable computing, big data, and predictive analytics means that cities will more or less run themselves. Roads and bridges will report their own faults and summon robotic repair crews. Everything from carpet to clothing, from chairs to bed will monitor us 24/7 and call for help if we need assistance before we necessarily know we've even got a problem. Now, things like this already exist. 10 years ago, I was writing about McDonalds in the US. About half of their turnover goes through drive-through because people seem to be in the most incredible hurry the whole time for a reason I've never entirely understood. The kitchen would start cooking people's orders before they'd actually ordered it. How do you do that? Predictive analytics. You look at what car they're driving, the make and the model and so on, not the individual number plate, and they have an awful lot of data about what people driving the same kind of car have ordered in the past. And they tend to order the same thing. If it's a very old Volvo station wagon at a certain time of day, strong chances of a Happy Meal coming up. If it's a brand new stretch Mercedes, you're not about to sell a salad and a load of water, most likely. Now, the data exhaust that we emit whilst interacting with people, places, and products reveals all kinds of patterns that were previously unobservable in many cases, and it's possible to sell people things before they even know they need them. We're seeing this already to some extent with locationally based marketing. Judging people's mood states in near real time and targeting individual ads to them can't be very far off. But a more prosaic future is surely one in which many of these technologies and systems are proprietary. This would mean no common standards, no truly intelligent networks, and not much real-time anything. Connecting everything to everything else also increases the attack surface for terrorists and troublemakers, which increases the risk of catastrophic systemic failures. Or consider the enormous energy requirements of such networks. Now, it's distinctly possible that these sensors will be able to generate their own power, but if not, we could be in for some trouble. There could be potential backlashes concerning the ownership of the data or privacy and security concerns of individuals, governments, or corporations. A global network of things, we hear about it a lot. I think a hyper-local locked-down networks are far more likely. Now, the sheer volume of information produced by billions of people and hundreds, if not thousands of billions of things could also create very big problems. Big data doesn't automatically translate into big insights. And remember, too, that too much information can create a kind of paralysis. This has happened before. The Stasi, the East German secret police, collapsed not because they were no good, but because they were too good. They collected too much information, and they just didn't know what to do with it. Now, another logical problem is that if does not imply will. And this is a point that I pick up in my new book, Digital versus Human, and I try to be very careful with my language. If I use words like will or won't, I ascribe probability to them, but most people don't seem to do that. Just because true or general AI might emerge does not mean that there's deep trouble for you lot or mass employment for everybody. It will not necessarily follow. Donald Trump may become president of the US, but this does not automatically translate into World War III. I'm slightly making that one up, actually. That might be true, but you know where I'm going. Yes, it's possible that smart algorithms could replace smart knowledge workers, but it's unlikely because other factors are involved. And we forget about this. We tend to think linearly. We need to think in terms of systems. Professions can act to exclude technology. That's happened before. Governments can regulate things. That happens all the time. And workers can go on strike or revolt. That happens occasionally. Moreover, there's a little conundrum. If robots do take over all our jobs, who exactly will have the money available to buy the goods that the robots are producing? Now, personally, I'm not worried by a theoretical robotic invasion. I'm far more concerned with the fact that 750 million people on this planet don't have access to clean water right now, and that we could solve this problem right now for less money than we currently spend making people click on ads. Now, another problem with robotic invasion theories is this. We constantly hear that the brain is like a computer, which essentially implies that all we need to do is reverse engineer the human brain, and hey presto, we've got thinking machines that threaten our existence. There are so many bugs in this argument, it's hard to know where to start. A good place might be a quote I came across very recently, and the quote is this: "If our brains were so simple that we could understand them, we would be so simple that we couldn't." The brain as a computer is a useful metaphor, but they are different things. Firstly, our brains have bodies that sense and transmit information about the environment around us. In a sense, we think with our whole bodies. Now, robots can be given senses and bodies too, but at the moment, they're not very good. A robot, for example, even the most sophisticated robot in the world, would struggle to distinguish between a window that's open and a window that's not. Overall, with some exceptions, robots generally have vastly less intelligence than a 2-year-old child at the moment, and 2-year-old children grow up, and they're capable of growing into vastly more intelligent things without needing endless upgrades, replacement, or repair. And do remember, by the way, that we can't currently design a phone battery that lasts more than a few days, or my own particular pet hate, a charging cable that works for all phones. So a universally useful robot is probably a way off. Secondly, our minds are all different, and Susan picked up on this earlier on. Our minds are all unique based on the different interactions we have with our environment. This is what makes us interesting. This is what makes us useful. We can also cross-fertilize this knowledge that comes from these different experiences to create new knowledge. And if you have fluid problems, which we do, you need that kind of knowledge. You need knowledge that changes according to changing problems. Now, thirdly, there's one thing that really sets us apart from our machines, which is that we're capable of thinking metaphorically. We can think about our own thinking, too. Most importantly, we can think existentially about our own condition. We can think about what it means to be human, whereas a computer is wholly incapable of thinking about what it means to be a machine. Now, yes, we can teach computers to paint pictures or write poetry. I saw recently Microsoft has taught a computer to actually paint in the style of Rembrandt. And I'm not talking about a copy, I'm talking about an original work in the style of Rembrandt that you can barely tell wasn't by Rembrandt. But there's no consequence. You know, we've been using machines to wash our clothes and dishes for decades, but such machines have no idea what they're doing. Machines can use sensors to be aware that something's happening and adjust their behavior as a result, and we're going to see a lot more of this in the future. But while they can be aware that it's snowing outside, it's very unlikely they're going to run outside with a smile on their faces and play in the snow until the snow's gone. It's even less likely they're going to come back inside and starting to write poetry or do a painting as a result of how they feel. Now, I could be wrong about this. True AI is not logically impossible, but it is highly implausible. The human brain is also the most complex thing we've ever discovered, and we still have very, very little idea about how it works. How, for instance, is consciousness created? We have next to no idea. Now, with this in mind, one does wonder why some people, particularly in California, feel so compelled to pursue such ideas as recreating consciousness. But that's humans for you. We can think and act illogically as well. And maybe some of the digital dreamers are right after all. Computer scientists are currently developing machines that can detect and interpret our emotional states. Emotionally aware or affective computing, it's called, and it's not very far away. So too is a world where avatar assistants might copy our verbal and, as Susan referred to earlier on, our non-verbal communications, which are so key, so effectively that we're fooled into thinking that they're real, that they really exist and they really have feelings for us. And if you've seen the film Her, you may have a foretaste of where that might be going. And I do think that what we see in that film is distinctly possible, unfortunately. But I'm going off track. The question at hand today is whether some kind of smart machine might steal your job or indeed your heart in the near future. I think the answer is no for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, and not or. Always think of the future in terms of and, not or. Computers are useful for processing information, but they need an aim or endpoint. With things as illogical as people, or things as intangible as brands, I'm not wholly clear what this endpoint is. Brands and people are both about feelings more than anything else, to my mind, and this seems to be the preserve of fluid intelligence and intuitive people. What we are clearly going to see in the fairly near future are increasingly smart machines performing more of the tasks that we currently perform ourselves. So whilst lawyers or planners might not disappear, we will be using machines, or more machines, I should say, to do our jobs. Things like testing thousands of price points, tactical offers, or incentives to find an optimal positioning is perfectly in reach of machines. But when it comes to ideas or aesthetics, we surely need human input to create things, especially if your aim is to create something that's new, not something that's derivative. This is more of a case of digital and human rather than digital versus human, and it points to a future, I hope, where we work alongside each other. We will work alongside our machines, not only to make the world a more efficient place, but to make it a more inspiring and surprising one too. Reason number 2 is people, and I think people are forgotten about too often. Most skilled jobs, in fact, I think you might stretch this and say most jobs, are based upon more than just inputting data, finding patterns in data, assessing statistical probabilities, or applying knowledge. Most skilled jobs require people to deal with people at some level. This means people require a high degree of emotional intelligence alongside rote learning. An understanding of a client's situation, a client's goals, a client's hopes, a client's fears, and even a client's interests is essential, as is the ability to motivate other staff and the ability to persuasively present an argument or an idea to a client. Computers are useless at all these things. Computers can only calculate, whereas humans can speculate. A machine can only see things as serial numbers and as a series of numbers and logical decisions, whereas a human can see the world is nuanced, contradictory, and sometimes doesn't make perfect sense. The final reason number 3, is imagination. You may have heard of a man called John Birnbach. He founded DDB. He said that rules are what an artist breaks. The memorable never emerged from a formula. This is why, ultimately, we have nothing to fear. Computers can help us to create things that work, but only humans can create things that stir the soul. Computers can only see the world as it is. Only people can see the world as it could become. In my view, the danger, actually, if you think about it, is not robots. The danger is automation, algorithms. But the real danger is not machines doing more, thereby displacing more humans, but humans expecting far less of each other, thereby reducing everything to standardized and sanitized experiences. The danger is that we aren't thinking, in ways that only humans can, about what effect the increasing presence of these ever smarter technologies is having on how we conceive of our world, how we conduct our relationships, and how we conduct ourselves. For this reason, and this reason alone, we are and shall remain for any foreseeable future the problem, not our technology. Thank you.